Hello everyone, today's discussion is on a theory which was developed in the recent decades. After the world wars, the world has understood that they need to do international trade. But understanding of trade flows and gaining edge was still to be discovered. With the alienated thought process, in the year 1996, Raymond Vernon propounded the international product life cycle theory. This was in response to the failure of the Heckscher-Ohlin model to explain the observed pattern of international trade. Vernon's international product life cycle theory is based on the experience of the US market. At that time, Vernon observed and found that a large proportion of the world's new products came from the US for most of the 20th century. It was concluded that the US was the first to introduce technological driver products. The theory proposes that in the early stages of a product's life cycle, all the parts and labor associated with that product come from the area where it was invented. Once the product becomes adopted and used in the world markets, production gradually moves away from the point of invention. After some point of time, like for many products, the product becomes an item that is imported by its original country of invention. A commonly used example of this is the invention, growth and production of the personal computer with respect to the United States. Let us demonstrate the model in easy terms. In this model, Raymond Vernon divided products into three categories based on their stage in the product life cycle and how they behave in the international trade market. First is the new product stage. In the first stage of the production cycle, manufacturers have an advantage by possessing new technologies. However, at these early stages of production, the products were not standardized, as the nature of the goods has implications such as price elasticity, the communication throughout the industry, and also the location of the product itself. Second is maturing product. As the product starts to mature, the conditions also start to change. A certain degree of standardization takes place and the demand of the products start appearing elsewhere. As demand has increased, overseas markets were imitating those products at a cheap labor and overall cost throughout the development continuum. And the third stage is standardization of the product, when it shall be consumed by a large population. As the markets in the developed countries mature, the product becomes standard. The developments of the life cycle were once again changed. There was more demand and cheaper labor costs from overseas countries. The pricing became the main competitive tool and cost became more of an issue than previously. The producers internationally based in advanced countries then had the opportunity to export back to the US. This has led to the undeveloped countries offering competitive advantage for the location of production, and finally they became exporters. This can be depicted in the graph. Initially, let's say the US has invented the computer. Here, only the US will make it. The cost will be very high with the limited production, so the demand will be very less. Here, it will be sold in the own country and some will be exported. Soon later, the industrialized countries will also start making it. Now, the innovating country will have reduced profitability because of reduced monopoly. But supply is more, and because of competition, computer prices will decrease. Finally, when the innovating country will approach maturity, the less developed countries will start making it. Now, the cost will be very less because of cheap labor and other factors of production. After this stage, it is quite possible that less developed countries will make computers in less price than US or any other developed country. In fact, it is profitable for them if they start buying from these countries instead of making it. So friends, this is how manufacturing of the product ripples from innovating country to developing countries. The time lag in the introduction phase of the product life cycle leads to the formation of the international product life cycle. There are 5 stages in a product's life cycle in respect to the product life cycle theory. 1. Introduction. 2. Growth. 3. Maturity. 4. Decline. 5. Abandonment. The location of production depends on the stage of the cycle. We will now understand these terms individually. Let us begin with stage 1, that is introduction. This is stage in which the new product is introduced to the market. The customers are not aware about the product. To create demand for the product, producers promote the new product to stimulate sales. The stages accompany low profits, which increases gradually with few competitors in the market. With the increased sales, it enters the next stage automatically. For example, a new product invented in the United States for local consumers is first produced in the United States because that is where the demand is, and producers want to stay close to the market to detect consumer response. Characteristics of the product and the production process are in a state of change during this stage as firms familiarize themselves with the product and the market. No international trade takes place. Stage 2, that is growth. In this stage, demand for the product increases. As a result, production costs will go down and companies will earn higher profits. In this stage, the product is widely known and competitors enter the market with their own version of the product. To attract as many consumers as possible, the company that developed the original product increases promotional spending. When many potential new customers have bought the product, it enters the next stage. Stage 3, that is maturity. Now in the maturity stage of the product life cycle, the product is widely known and many consumers own it. In the maturity phase of the product life cycle, demand levels often sales volume increases at a slower rate. There are several competitors by this stage, and the original supplier may reduce prices to maintain market share and support sales. Profit margins decrease, but the business remains attractive because volume is high and costs, such as for development and promotion, are also lower. In addition, foreign demand for the product grows, but it is associated particularly with other developed countries, since the product is catering to high-income demands. For instance, in the case of the newly invented product, this rise in foreign demand, assisted by economies of scale, leads to a trade pattern whereby the United States exports the product to other high-income countries. Other developments also occur in the maturing product stage. Once the American firm is selling to other high-income countries, it may begin to assess the possibilities of producing abroad in addition to producing in the United States. With a plant in France, for example, not only France but other European countries can be supplied from the French facility rather than from the US plant. Thus, an initial export surge by the United States is followed by a fall in US exports and a likely fall in US production of the goods. Stage 4, that is saturation. It is a stage in which there is neither increase nor decrease in the volume of sale. Through modification in the attribute of the product is needed to attract new consumers. Competitors' product at this stage would have started gaining its market share. Stage 5, that is decline. By this time in the product's life cycle, the characteristics of the product itself and of the production process are well known. The product is familiar to consumers and the production process to producers. This occurs when the product peaks in the maturity stage and then begins a downward slide in sales. Eventually, revenues drop to the point where it is no longer economically feasible to continue making the product. Investment is minimized. The product can simply be discontinued, or it can be sold to another company. Production may shift to the developing countries. Labor costs again play an important role, and the developed countries are busy introducing other products. For instance, the trade pattern shows that the United States and other developed countries have now started importing the product from the developing countries. On costs and revenues, that is low production costs and a high demand ensures a longer product life. When production costs are high and demand is low, it is not offered on the market for a long time and, eventually, is withdrawn from the market in the decline stage. Note that a particular firm or industry in a country stays in a market by adapting what they make and sell, that is, by riding the waves.